The NATO Summit Challenge. How to retool the Cold War-era military alliance to face new threats. A foundation turns Uganda's capital, Kampala, into the go-to city for entrepreneurs. And Star Trek-themed coins boldly go into Canada. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We begin right here in the United States, where a man was fatally shot by a police officer while in his vehicle Wednesday night in the Midwestern state of Minnesota. Now, friends and family have told the local media that the man was Philando Castile, a black 32-year-old public school employee who was pronounced dead minutes after arriving at the hospital. A woman and a 7-year-old child were also in the car and have been taken into police custody. Now, Interim Police Chief John Mankseth of the St. Anthony, Minnesota Police Department read the statement at a press briefing early Thursday and did not take any questions.
On the evening of 7/6/2016 at approximately 9 p.m., a St. Anthony police officer effected a traffic stop on Larpenteur Avenue at Fry Street in the city of Falcon Heights, Minnesota. During the stop, shots were fired. One adult male was taken to the hospital. We have been informed that this individual is deceased. No one else was injured, and the BCA has been called in to investigate this officer-involved shooting. A handgun was recovered from the scene. The BCA will provide additional information as their investigation progresses. The officer involved in this incident has been put on standard paid administrative leave.
Well, protesters gathered following the incident outside the police station and later the Minnesota governor's mansion. Now, the demonstrations were prompted by a video posted online purported to show the aftermath of the shooting. Police have not confirmed the video is of the same incident. The man in the video was already shot and bleeding and slumped in the car. A woman also in the car is heard on the video saying that the victim told police he had a pistol on him and had a permit for it and was told to stop reaching for his wallet by the officer. As the man was putting his hands up, he was shot 4 or 5 times. That's according to the woman in that video. Now, Italian emergency workers have recovered 217 bodies from the wreck of a boat that sank in the Mediterranean in April 2015, killing some 500 migrants. The Italian Navy said on Thursday the vessel was hauled off the seabed north of Libya. That is from where it departed and taken to a naval site in southeastern Sicily last week. The sinking was one of the worst known disasters involving migrants trying to reach Europe by sea. In another tragic event, a Nigerian asylum seeker was beaten to death by a person described as a racist right-wing football fan in a small town in northern Italy. Emmanuel Chidi Nnamdi and his wife Chinyere were walking through the town of Falmo in the Marche region on Tuesday when they were repeatedly insulted, or rather reportedly insulted by the supporter of a local football club. For more, journalist Josephine McKenna joins me live via Skype from Rome. Good evening, Josephine.
Good evening, Vincent.
So kind of just fill us in, how did this gentleman end up being killed?
Well, it sounds like a very chance event. Mr. Nnamdi was walking down the street of this town with his wife. They've been living there since September last year, and he was met by he met this fellow who started apparently accusing him and insulting him and his wife and calling them monkeys. So when he reacted, there must have been some kind of scuffle or altercation, and the man punched or hit Mr. Nnamdi. He fell down and went into a coma. This was on Tuesday, and then yesterday he actually died. So it's quite shocking, particularly as this couple survived a Boko Haram attack in Nigeria, where certain family members were killed. They made that very dangerous journey across the Mediterranean through Libya to arrive in Italy, and were trying to build a new life in Fermo, where they had great support from the Catholic Church and the community.
Now, has the attacker been arrested?
There was a man arrested today. We're waiting to find out more information. He hasn't yet been charged, but they have arrested someone. There's also been a political outcry across the country with the Prime Minister, Matteo Renzi, saying there's no room for hatred, racism and this kind of violence in Italy. Other members across the other politicians across the political spectrum have also spoken out quite strongly in support of this gentleman. But the anti-immigrant Northern League has used this as an opportunity to once again say that too many immigrants are pouring into Italy and there need to be more controls.
Yeah, but is this kind of an isolated incident, or is there that widespread kind of animosity that can lead to violence in Italy?
There seems to be quite a division in Italy. Many people are being very generous and supportive of immigrants, but we are seeing some small incidents. We've also seen tent cities in Rome and on the border of France in the tiny town of Ventimiglia, where hundreds of migrants are camping out on the street. And that's starting to also cause some opposition and some antagonism with Italian people who are starting to react against the migrants.
Yeah, now very quickly, talking of numbers, today or this week, there have been a major rescue operation. Just quickly tell us what has happened.
Well, Vincent, as you know, the Coast Guard and the Italian Navy are out in the Sicilian Strait every day rescuing people. On Tuesday, vessels from the Navy and the Coast Guard and Frontex, the EU organisation, rescued around 4,500 immigrants. So that gives you an indication of how many are still pouring across the Mediterranean Sea.
Josephine, thank you very much for your reporting.
Thanks, Vincent.
Well, that's Josephine McKenna reporting live via Skype from Rome. On the heels of a U.S. announcement to keep 8,400 U.S. troops in Afghanistan, NATO leaders will meet in Warsaw Friday and Saturday to discuss three key security topics. That is, continuing support for Afghan forces, defeating Islamic State militants on NATO's southern flank, and deterring Russian aggression on the alliance's eastern flank. Now, VOA Pentagon correspondent Carla Babb has more.
From Afghanistan to Ukraine to Islamic State, there's no shortage of global security threats to discuss at this year's NATO summit.
Well, let's be blunt. Alliances don't have a choice. They have to walk and chew gum. You don't prioritize key threats. You have to deal with all of them.
With U.S. troop numbers no longer an uncertainty, analysts say NATO leaders need a strategy to help Afghans solve a myriad of problems, including a struggling economy, a failure to restart peace talks with the Taliban, and a rise in Afghan casualties following a fierce fighting season.
It's not something where we are clearly losing, but whatever is happening there, we clearly are not yet winning.
To the south, NATO is not fighting the Islamic State as a bloc, with members choosing instead to send their troops unilaterally into the U.S.-led coalition. After the Paris terrorist attack last year, some called for NATO to invoke its Article 5 collective defense authorities against the extremist group. But some analysts warn against more NATO involvement.
I think NATO will not become officially involved in Syria and Iraq in a big way because we need Russian cooperation in Syria especially, and you're not going to get Russian cooperation if NATO is there.
Russia poses yet another potential threat to the alliance. Russia has illegally annexed neighboring Ukraine's Crimea Peninsula and has continued to support separatists in Ukraine's east.
On the deck, below the bridge wing.
Russian pilots have also flown dangerously close to American warships, conducting training operations with NATO allies in the Baltic Sea. NATO leaders at the summit will need to both reassure NATO's eastern allies
below the bridge wing
and be ready to deter further Russian aggression.
I think one of the greatest keys to deterrence, what would really deter those who would seek to bring pressure on our alliance, is that our entire alliance, the force structure that we already have, becomes more ready and more responsive.
To help with this effort, the U.S., UK, Germany, and Canada are each planning to lead a NATO rotational battalion to be based on the alliance's eastern flank. A U.S. official tells VOA President Barack Obama will announce that the U.S. will lead a battalion in Poland. with the others leading battalions in Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Carla Babb, VOA News, The Pentagon.
Well, the United States on Wednesday imposed sanctions on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un for the first time, citing notorious abuses of human rights. The U.S. Treasury Department said in a statement the sanctions, the first to target any North Korean for rights abuses, affect property and other assets within the U.S. jurisdiction. They include 10 other individuals besides Kim and 5 government ministries and departments. Many of the abuses are in North Korea's prison camps, which hold between 80,000 and 120,000 people, including children. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Now join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, Uganda's Launchpad for entrepreneurs. Stay with us.
Health news and notes. This is Living Better.
4 men convicted of drinking and driving in Thailand file into a morgue in Bangkok. Authorities want drunk drivers to see firsthand what can happen when they take the wheel. Probation officer Prasarn Mahali Treku.
We want to raise their awareness. After they've seen the reality of this place, they won't dare to drink and drive again.
More than 1,700 drunk drivers have toured morgues in dozens of locations across the country since the Thai Probation Department began the program in 2016. This convicted drunk driver says the mandatory morgue tour frightened him and made him think he could also end up on a cold trolley in a hospital room. Thailand has the second highest rate of automobile fatalities in the world, over 11,000 in 2015 alone. 25% of these deaths were from drunk driving. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
Well, are you a budding entrepreneur looking for mentorship in business in East Africa? Well, Mara Foundation Launchpad in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, is doing just that. Students at the center receive support through mentorship programs and management skills by professionals from the corporate world. VOA's Paul Dio has our report.
The Mara Group was founded in 2009 by entrepreneur Ashish J. Taka. The Mara Foundation enables ambitious and aspiring entrepreneurs to connect with their peers and business leaders globally for a 6-month period. So far, more than 200 businesses have benefited from the program. Roy Gakou represents a Mara Foundation in Uganda.
Mara Foundation is a social enterprise that works and focuses on upcoming young entrepreneurs to nurture the survival of their ventures or to help them develop their business ideas into functional businesses.
The foundation incorporates 3 integral platforms, focusing on developing small, medium enterprises to supporting entrepreneurs focusing on youth and women.
Moving forward, we have tried to really focus in ensuring that our mentorship platform has been enhanced to also exist online and as an application so that more and more entrepreneurs, more upcoming entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs can be able to embrace it and engage mentors all across the globe.
Mara Foundation runs several initiatives including Mara Mentors signature program, Mara One-on-One. This program is designed to help young enterprises survive the cutthroat world of business by creating alliances with strong players who have already succeeded in running successful companies.
We believe that mentorship is actually the solution to this problem, and that is why Mara Mentor has been made available for all the aspiring entrepreneurs and upcoming entrepreneurs to be able to survive through their critical stages.
Mara's location in the city center of Uganda's capital, Kampala, gives potential clients easy access to the country's business hub. It houses up to more than 40 growing startups at a time, Filmmaker Isaac Oboth started his own company Media 256 6 years ago. Although he raised his own capital, he says he benefited enormously from the mentorship program and the subsidies of his space.
The Mara Foundation provided me a place to set up an enterprise at absolutely minimum costs. It took my business from being just a briefcase company to something that was actually more solid, more concrete, because I had a premises, I had an address. I could bring clients in for editing sessions.
Andrew Mukwaya is also a graduate of Mara. He started his paper bag making venture nearly 9 years ago. Mukwaya says his business is bringing in about $3,000 to $4,000 every month.
Mara Foundation has helped me to improve on my market, the way I handle my clients, the way I handle my product development.
Roy Gaku says as the Western interest in the African market grows, Mara Foundation has become the place where 500 Fortune company executives gather, decamp, declaim, and debrief when visiting the region. Above all, it has helped to dispel the notion that Africa's human capital is somehow lacking in ideas, talent, or ambition. Paul Ndiho, VOA News.
Let's stay in East Africa now. Pupils of a local primary school near the Kenyan capital have initiated an innovative environmental program aimed at curbing the effects of climate change. Roman Chama has a report.
Pupils of a local primary school near the Kenyan capital have initiated an innovative environmental program aimed at curbing the effects of climate change. The youngsters from Kiserian Primary School, located in a peri-urban area of Kajiado County, some 26 kilometers southwest of Nairobi, are actively involved in planting trees. They also tend a community tree nursery where hundreds of tree seedlings are grown and shared with the local community. According to Josephat Njuki, who heads the school's environment club, the project was set up several years ago as a brainchild of the school's young population. Several years on, the project is gaining traction from the local community and has been commended as a practical, homegrown solution towards addressing the global problem of climate change and deforestation.
Now we are ready to put the seeds that we want in our polythene paper. The most important thing is putting the seed just near the surface of the soil to allow the seed to germinate fast. If you put it deep in the paper, then it will take some more days as expected. In science, what do you need for germination? Water.
Sun.
Warmth.
Sunlight.
Victoria Akinyi, 13, is a member of the Environment Club. She says the future belongs to the children and that environment is critical to that future.
The trees help us stop global warming. We can't live without trees, that's a fact. A human being can't survive without trees, that's another fact.
Akinyi says by doing this, the children are claiming their future right now. They are securing their future, planting one tree at a time. Another pupil, David Masharia, 13, is an environmental enthusiast. He says he joined the Environment Club to help save farmlands from erosion and address the threat of desertification across Africa.
I take part in planting trees because I know that without me planting them, there's not going to be a difference in the world. The world needs me to cater for it. If I plant one tree and you plant another, we are going to make our world better and stop global warming.
According to the United Nations, 2/3 of Africa is classified as desert or drylands. Climate change has led to prolonged spells of drought, overgrazing, deforestation, and land degradation.
Ruben Chama for VOA News, Kiserian, Kenya.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, the Canadian Mint pays tribute to a beloved TV sci-fi classic. We'll be right back.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. They tell you what people are talking about. So for an in-depth look at the stories trending high on social media, turn to #VOA. It's not your typical talk show. From politics to pop culture, #VOA brings in the people leading the conversation, engages the audience, and gets answers to your questions. #VOA. Smart talk for smart people.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. It's another busy morning commute in central London, but this is one with a difference. At the Central Holborn station, where the Piccadilly and Central lines regularly ramble by, these unwitting passengers are taking part in an experiment which aims to cut congestion at peak times. Now, they're being asked to stand on both sides of two upward-moving escalators so more passengers can be ferried up from the platform level, according to the government body responsible for the transport system in the Greater London area. A previous trial found standing on both sides reduced congestion by 30%. Now, next up, could an award-winning chef change Italy's food culture? Massimo Bottura's restaurant is this year's champion of the world's 50 best restaurants list, an absolute first for Italy. The chef is a pioneer of a new wave of Italian chefs who are turning grandma's kitchen upside down. In a country whose food culture is deeply conservative, that is a risky and sometimes controversial path to take. His daring dishes include "Oops, I dropped the lemon tat," a smashed pastry, and an eel swimming up the river pool. Bottura is also the founder of Food for Soul, a non-profit project started in early 2016 to fight hunger and food wastage. Well, and finally, Star Trek is boldly going to Canada. Star Trek's original series is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. To commemorate this special event, Canada's Royal Canadian Mint launched a series of collector's coins in limited edition. There is Captain Kirk, Spock, Scotty and Uhura, but Canadians shouldn't expect the Starship Enterprise crew to end up in their wallets. The Star Trek coin collection isn't made for circulation. Unlike consumer coins that are minted in their millions, the collector coins are exclusive and produced in limited editions. They're more detailed, colorful, and made up from expensive materials such as fine silver and pure gold. And that is what is trending today. Now, Janine Cunningham, who goes by the stage name Ja9, is a Jamaican reggae artist who beautifully blends songs of protest, social justice, and spirituality. In her maiden appearance in the U.S. audience, she sat down with VOA's Jackson Vunganyi to talk about her music, message, and her role as a woman in an industry dominated by male voices.
That's one of the most refreshing new artists in Jamaica today. Ja9 is as much a singer as she is an activist. Her music touches on themes of social justice, violence, politics, and spirituality, among others. On her maiden tour to the US, Ja9 introduces her blend of reggae to the American audience.
Well, I have described it as jazz on dub. Because you know, dub is about the drum and bass. Right. It's drum and bass driven, it's roots, but at the same time it's open spaces. Mm-hmm. And then the vocal style is jazz because I am not limited to the stuff. You know, I kind of have experimented with just different kinds of sounds that are not necessarily the orthodox reggae music sounds. And you know, but what makes it reggae music or roots music is the messages.
Like many musicians of her generation, Ja9 traces her musical roots in church. Her father was a pastor.
I was singing in the church, I was singing at school, all choirs available. Okay. I would be on. And you know, the tradition of the church is singing and hymns and just learning music, you know, so that was how I learned music. Whatever you're doing, not the reality, that's all creating. Use your concentration wisely, because your only limitation is your imagination.
Despite its promotion of values of social justice and consciousness, it has been said that the reggae music industry is essentially male-driven, but that is slowly changing. with new voices are reflecting a diversity in sound and gender.
You have not really seen women step forward in the front. Not because they're under some kind of oppression, but just because they're usually the background vocalists, and then they transition. And it's really hard for somebody to transition from, you know, the background to the foreground. And I stepped right in the front.
Jan 9 doesn't consider herself just as a musician and performer. She embraces her role as an educator too.
You know, whether it's a large festival or it's 100 people, it's connecting with them and sharing the breath and sharing the posture and giving more than just entertainment, just trying to infuse an education as much as possible. And I think that has been really well received because people aren't used to that, and especially confidence from a black woman. Just saying, yeah, this is how I come, this is it, and bringing it, and, you know what I mean? And that is powerful, not because it's from me, but because it is from the feminine, you know?
To her, singing is less about gaining wealth and fame, but serving a higher spiritual calling.
And right now, how I see it unfolding, I am a servant. And this mission has been one of service. It isn't really, I want to be a star and I want to make a lot of money. It's really, this message is so needed that there is more of a pull factor. So I just go where, you know, I am required.
You're needed.
Yes, I.
And you kind of respond to the audience.
Yes, I. And so when it is that it is no longer needed, it will evolve into a different kind of service. But right now, I am just a servant. I do see the message evolving. I see the message evolving because I watch the world evolving. So I watch, you know, I have a lot of things to say, and there's a lot of room for you to be politically aggressive and talk about those things. But I realize everyone is talking about that. What's not being highlighted right now is the feminine. What's not being highlighted now is nurturing and love and softness conquering hardness. These are the messages that are important now. As things become more agitated in the world, people need to remember to breathe and to be still so that they cannot be manipulated with their emotions. So I try to, you know, remind the stronger ones to be strong for the weaker ones and remind them that, yeah, you are in control, you know, don't lose your power, don't forget that you have the power.
Well, and that's our show for today. Now, be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us in Washington, have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words, where we talk about words you hear in the news.
This word is about a soccer game and war in Myanmar, formerly known as Burma.
Sporadic.
In the weeks since the game was played, reports of sporadic fighting in Karen State and other parts of the country have marred the peace-building process.
The word sporadic means something is happening every now and then. One cannot predict when it will happen.
It also does not happen in an orderly way. In stories about war, like this one, sporadic may describe weapons fire.
Now, the next time you hear sporadic, you will know what this news word means, and you can use it in a conversation.